You got Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We thank you for streaming in on Super Friday, Football Friday. Yeah, they're going to play a game on Sunday. We're going to ask Dom about that as well. Well, Domowitch 3013, JAKIBsports.com. Good enough to jump on. And I went with the Hawaiian look because of Domo. His is a little bit more outrageous.
I think we're all foreshadowing an Andy Reid win. I'm the only one being non-biased here.
As I said at the top of the show, don't read my sartorial splendor into my Super Bowl pick. Dama, before we get to the Super Bowl, I pimped you a little bit before we punched you up. No, you knew last week the Hall of Fame status. You guys had your selectors meeting prior to. Used to do it night before the Super Bowl, but now they have the honors, which, oh, by the way, Keegan-Michael Key was good last night. I thought he did a good job. I actually watched it. His monologue was really funny. I thought he did a great job, and they eventually got to the Hall of Fame stuff. Need to know from you, was Eric Allen close? Was he dismissed? First-time finalist? They kind of put you into that waiting line that you got to be there for you to suffer some more. Eric hasn't waited long enough. How did the conversation on Eric Allen go?
Everybody, I think there's a lot of support for him in the room, but the bottom line is what you just said, Jody. He was one of 4 first-time finalists, actually 5. The 2 Peppers who got in, Gates who didn't, and then Jari Evans, Fred Taylor, and Rodney Harrison. So there was 4 of the 5 who were eliminated in the 15-10 vote were first-time finalists, and that's kind of the reality of the room right now. And I don't object to it necessarily, even though, Eric should have been in years ago. When guys have been waiting, when they've made the final 15, it's tough to come in, after you have not been in that final 15 and jump over them. And, unless you've got some eloquent guy making his presentation for you. And apparently mine wasn't eloquent enough.
No. Won't hold it against you, Damo. Yeah. It sounds like that's
in Eric. I think what's going to happen with Eric, and I'm, it's why I'm not real disappointed that he didn't get in. This was his 18th year as a modern era candidate. He's got 2 years left. Just as there is a consideration in that room for people who are first-time finalists, as far as not having them jump over some guys that have been waiting. There's also a consideration for people that are getting close to being, going down that senior rabbit hole where you sometimes never get heard from again. So, it happened with Sam Mills in 2022, made it in his 20th year of eligibility. I feel good that either next year or at the very worst in 2 years, Eric Allen will be a Hall of Famer.
Anybody surprise you a little bit getting in? Devin Hester finally put a returner in. If somebody deserves it, it should be him, no question about it. But I was a little surprised the guys went down that route. You mentioned Gates. I thought he would get in as a first ballot guy. Happy Randy Gradishar got in. I think he's been forgotten a little bit. He was a tremendous player.
Yeah.
Steve McMichael obviously sick right now, so that's exciting for him and his family to get in. Julius Peppers to me was a slam dunk guy. Interestingly, Andre Johnson, Patrick Willis. I don't know. For me, Damo, I think I'm weird. Like when I've seen Patrick Willis his whole career, great player, but I don't look at him as Hall of Fame. I have more reverence for the older guys, maybe because of the stories I've heard. I don't know why it is, but I'm like, is that really a Hall of Fame player? I guess so. I don't know. It's difficult for me. Do you have that same difficulty with? I think I hold guys that I've seen for every single year to a higher standard. I don't know if that's fair or not.
The biggest negative with Willis was that he didn't have a long career. He retired early because of issues and worries about concussions and that sort of thing. This was his 3rd year as a finalist. It's tough with inside linebackers because they don't have a stat you can grab onto like you can with sack guys and it was a problem with Sam Mills. It's a problem with every inside linebacker, that's come through, especially since you mentioned guys from the old guys. They were usually about 260 pounds, and there was something imposing about a Butkus and people like that. These are smaller guys. For some reason they don't jump out at you. I didn't have a problem with Patrick Willis. I had a problem with Devin Hester.
Yeah.
I did not believe. I didn't vote for him when we were down to 5, and that's the first time I've done that in a long time, because I just don't believe a guy who wasn't good enough as an everyday player, no matter how good he is as a return guy, belongs in the Hall of Fame. Kickers, punters, sure, that's their job, their one and only job. When there's only 3 of them in there, I just had a problem with Hester. He had I don't think he ever had a year where he had more than 55, 56 catches, and he only had a couple of those. So he was strictly a return guy. Granted, what the best ever, probably. What do you have, like 19 touchdowns?
I think he had 14 punt return touchdowns, which is amazing. But I think about impact, and I think about Billy White Shoes Johnson. There's another old guy, and I think about, I don't know how much that resonates with you guys, but I think he was so impactful. Like, maybe if there was going to be someone, maybe he should have been first, and then you could have the other guys in. I don't know. That's meaningful to me. Yeah. But I don't think there's any question that Hester is the best returner of all time. But yeah, I'm with you. Does that deserve? That's so specialized.
Yeah.
But then you get the
no more specialized than kickers and punters.
Yeah, and
if
part of it is
kickers and punters in. How do you not? Returners don't matter.
But that's all they can do.
What else can kickers and punters do other than kick and punt?
But kickers also decide games. That's not necessarily the case with a return guy. Return guys, I'm looking at if they were a wide receiver and weren't good enough to be an every down player for their team or make a difference as a wide receiver, I just have a hard time voting for them as a return guy, no matter how good they are.
And plus, now it's like it's been devalued to the point where we're never going to have another returner. They're not.
The more reason that Hester deserves to be in, because they've taken it out of the game. But you're voting on what the game was like at that time, and returning was still a key element to the game, and he did it better than anybody ever did it before.
I would say I'm the same. There's not a lot of kickers in the Hall of Fame. There's not a lot of punters in the Hall of Fame either. Same thing. They're specialized. There's a reason there's only a few.
2 kickers and 1 punter.
Yeah. And, Ray, people look at Ray Guy's numbers and they'll say, well, look at the guys today. Yeah, but Ray was so dominant in his day. Did Devin reach Ray Guy status? I don't think
for me.
I don't think so. Not for me.
Devin or Guy got in as a senior candidate. It took him a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Devin Hester, it didn't. He's a finalist for 3 years, but he's a moderate. He still had a lot of eligibility left. I just, a lot of the people in the room obviously disagreed with me.
Let me ask you about that, Domo, the way that you stated it. Ray Guy compared to Devin Hester. Well, Ray Guy had to wait.
Well, that was me, not Domo.
No, Domo just gave me the placement of when Ray Guy got in. He gave the senior committee.
Yeah.
So do guys do that, do you think, in your own mind? I'm asking you to get inside the heads of all your fellow voters. Compare and contrast guys, and he didn't get in till this way, so I think they're very equal play. So I have to hold out on voting on this guy, and he's gonna have to go through the senior club. Do they do that? Do you think they do that in their own minds? And guys, comparing guys positionally would certainly be the most obvious way to do it. And we're talking about the quote unquote return guys, punters, kickers. Does that happen? And if so, do you think along those lines?
Well, let me point out first, I am not on this. There's a separate senior committee inside the big committee who selects the 2. Well, it varies from year to year how many senior nominees there are and how many coach/contributor nominees there are, and then we vote on the ones they nominate. Right now, there seems to be among the senior committee an attempt to right wrongs from years ago. You're looking at most of the nominees are guys from way back. I mean, you look at the coach contributor guy that did not make it this year, did not get enough votes, was Buddy Parker.
Yeah, Clark Judge is a big
Judge's
Buddy
favorite
Park.
guy.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I love Clark, but I ain't putting Buddy Parker in the Hall of Fame before
Yeah.
Mike Holmgren, before Mike Shanahan, before guys who may be more recent, but are certainly more deserving. So that's where we are. Art Powell didn't make it. He was nominated as a guy who they felt has been overlooked for too many years. And I'm talking about the senior committee. I think they're getting, in my opinion, they're getting a little bit too obsessed with righting wrongs from 50 years ago. I mean, there's a reason these guys got passed up at some point in the 60s when, the Hall of Fame's only been around since, I believe, 64. So they let in a ton originally.
Yeah.
And, if they felt at that time when they had a better recollection of a lot of these guys that they weren't good enough to be in the Hall of Fame,
Now I saw it with Eric, obviously there's, and I saw Rube was talking about Seth today, and his numbers compared to Patrick Willis's. Now, to me, I don't get caught up in that stuff because Patrick was, I don't know, 7-time All-Pro, something like that, made the All-Decade team. So I think that more resonates because you're talking about you had an opportunity to make more plays in Seth's era. I don't know if that's fair or not, but
Eric has suffered a little bit from the fact of the lack of statistics back in his era, in that we don't know. He was a shutdown corner. People did not. I mean, one part of my presentation was Phil Simms talking about Bill Parcells telling him, if you throw it over Eric Allen's way, I'm taking you out of the game.
Yeah, Clark told us that. Phil Simms and Troy Aikman as well. Troy Aikman. I thought Eric would have a better chance when guys like that talk him up a little bit.
So the bottom line I'm saying here is he didn't get many balls thrown at him and yet still had 54 interceptions, which means he just took advantage of every opportunity. I mean, he had, his skills set was, I got a chance, I was covering ball back then. And it's just not a question to me that Eric Allen belongs in. He suffered for a lot of reasons. The fact that he didn't play on a Super Bowl team, a Super Bowl winner, that there's only one Hall of Famer off of those great gangrene defenses, and that's Reggie White. And that's a problem in that room. They're just too much of a reliance on championship teams. I mean, you see the number of ex-Steelers, former Steelers, former Dolphins, former Packers. I'm not saying most of them don't belong in, but at some point you keep letting guys in because they played on these Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I definitely think there used to be too much of an emphasis on Super Bowl championships because one guy, and I'm biased like everybody else on certain guys because I know Jim Marshall. I'm like, what the hell? Jim Marshall can't get in. He's not even close. And maybe, that's because Page got in and Eller got in, he's the third guy. And they didn't win the Super Bowl. They just went to a bunch of the Super Bowls. But everybody's got a little bit of that. I need you to do me a favor, though, Domo. And I know I'm going to lose this argument, but I need you to hold the wall because next year is the year Eli Manning is eligible for the Hall of Fame. I know I'm going to lose. I know he's going in. That is not a Hall of Fame
first year.
No, I don't think he'll go in the first year.
So next year is irrelevant.
But I mean forever. I mean in perpetuity. I'm asking Paul Damo to hold the wall. This is not a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Damo will hang up his vote before Eli gets in. And not because Damo's holding the wall. It's going to take a while for Eli to get in. Damo's telling us great stories about how you have to build up equity and you got to wait and you got to go through the process. And that's the way it's worked with Eli's not getting in right off the jump. It's going to be a while. The debate will rage.
He is a 500 quarterback who had 2 runs. Why isn't Jim Plunkett in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, you get all these nutty Eagles fans who say Nick Foles should be considered if he had a second run. I mean, come on. He's a 500. How many losing seasons did that guy have? I can't. I can't even believe it's a discussion. And deep down, I know he's getting in at some point. I know it might not be year one, like Jody said,
Yeah,
but
I
I
don't
know
know.
he's getting in
I
because
know.
of his name.
It's
and
going to be a
where
while. And it's, I mean, I agree with you, John. I mean, I don't right now see him as a Hall of Famer. And right now, I mean, his career's long over. So I can't imagine somebody changing my mind. But if he gets in, it's going to be long after I'm done voting.
Yeah. Eli will not be a first time, a second time, a third time. He may get in at some point. All three, we're all in agreement. He's not a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he may get in at some point, but it's going to be down the road. All right, Dom, a couple legal questions, a couple Super Bowl questions. Will the Eagles rue the day when the Cliff Kingsbury, Brian Johnson offense is running circles around the rest of the NFC East, including the Philadelphia Eagles, since they had Brian Johnson and made a play for Cliff Kingsbury? They are now combining, tag teaming down in D.C. Is that the offense to fear for the next decade?
You know, it's good. I'm going to be interested to see what happens down there with Kingsbury. You know, I don't. You know, there's too many offenses that have enough of similarities now that it's not the novelty it was when he was coaching it in college. When you know, when Leach was when he was learning it from Mike Leach as a player. You know, I don't know. You know, we'll see what happens. It's going to come down to who they have as players.
did they get the quarterback right? Who are they getting? Is it going to be Caleb Williams? Is it going to be Drake May? Is it going to be Jaden Daniels? And does that turn into
those guys is not going to become a player is the one they'll draft?
It's different. Remember, this is not the Daniel Snyder Commanders. We can't just assume they're always going to make the wrong decision. I'm not a big Josh Harris guy from Sixer stuff, but he's better than Daniel Snyder. I'll say that. Can't just assume they're going to make the wrong decision anymore.
Yeah.
I think they could. I think they could make the right decision, and then those two guys could coach him up poorly and make it look like the wrong decision.
Johnson.
He's also down on Cliff Kingsbury for some reason, and I don't get this, Damo. And Jody and I were talking about it. I'm not picking on Jody because everybody does it, but people talk about such certainty with these coaches, and I'm like, I don't even know. But I know the Eagles told me that Brian Johnson was a really bright.
But John, really you talk in certainty as if Brian Johnson should have been kept. You're as guilty as anybody else. They talk with certainty. You're talking with certainty that Brian Johnson should still be here.
I got Jody upset. No, I talk in my opinion. I think Brian Johnson.
That's what everybody else has as an opinion. How do you declare it as certainty?
Because I don't say it's certainty. Am I 100% certain that Brian Johnson's going to be one of the best offensive coordinators? No, I'm not. I'm listening to what the Eagles told me for 2 years. I know he turned Jalen Hurts when he was working with him on a day-to-day basis in a runner-up for MVP, which is pretty good. And all of a sudden, he turns into the offensive coordinator. He turns into a moron. I don't know.
And then I look moron.
Well, a lot of people have called him much worse, but he turns it.
Love you to name names.
Well, I'm talking mainly of fans, and you know, I'm not using the word. You have not heard people criticize Brian Johnson?
Oh, I've criticized Brian Johnson. Yeah. I'm on record. I think he did a lousy job this year.
Well, then what are you arguing
with his job?
And you're arguing for arguing.
That's my opinion.
Here's the bottom. Like a lot of people are upset that Jalen Carter, a lot of Eagles fans are upset that Jalen Carter didn't win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Came in second to Will Anderson. Why did he come in second? Because he finished poorly. But a lot of Eagles fans wanted him to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. He had a good rookie year. He came up second. The Eagles offense was number 8 in the NFL, number 7 in points per game, number 3 in third down offense, number 1 in fourth down offense, number 9 in red zone offense. These are not fireable numbers. These are not.
When you're expected to be significantly higher than that, sure as hell is.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't
from the previous year where they were last year. The categories you just gave: down, 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 and down.
Well, they certainly weren't down in first down at the fourth downs because you can't be down from one. I don't think they were down. I don't think they were third and third down offense. So they were up in two of those categories.
No,
they were down in
gets
three.
credit for tush push. Are you kidding?
They were very up in third down offense. I believe that 48%.
Yeah.
I mean, I made my opinion clear last week that he was a scapegoat, that the blame for any problems with the offense this year fall on the head coach who did not make the changes he needed to make during the offseason to adjust for what defenses were going to do to them.
By the way, I just thought of this the other day. The Eagles did to Nick Sirianni what Nick Sirianni did to Sean Desai. They did the same thing. They did the same thing. Do we think this is going to work out? They are trying to thread this needle. With Nick Sirianni. And we joked about the press conference and the part where he said, "What are you going to do?" Tim McManus, our buddy, asked him, "What do you do basically here?" And he said, "I don't know." He sounded like a retired guy. "I don't know. Maybe I'll sit in the defensive meeting." But Vic will tell him to get the hell out pretty quickly. I don't know. Is it karma? Because that's essentially what Nick Sirianni did to Sean Desai. He said, "You can stick around, but we're going to strip you of all your power."
Yeah. I mean, I think they've covered their bets here with the people they've hired as coordinators. They've got Kellen Moore, who's probably one of the up and coming. That definitely is one of the up and coming young offensive minds who could be, as far as head coaching candidates going forward. And then you got Vic Fangio, if you wanted to go that route for a year or two, if you had to make a change. You got a guy that's got head coaching experience, and you could make him the head coach. So I think they're covered there if they want to fire Nick after this season.
So let me ask you this, Domo. If you're just taking a step back and looking going forward, and you have the chance to have Brian Johnson be your offensive coordinator with Nick Sirianni going forward into 24, 25, 26, 27, or you can have with continuity attached, because Brian Johnson was here as an offensive coordinator last year and the 2 years before as quarterback coach, or you can have Kellen Moore, as you just called him, new, bright, offensive guy, change of pace, no continuity whatsoever, but a different outlook. Which would you choose for the Eagles?
Well, it's not a choice. You fired the one guy, so
no. I'm saying it's a scratch. We take the fact that you took him out. You have the chance to hire either one of them now. Which do you think would project better for the Eagles offense going forward? A Nick Sirianni combination, a Sirianni Brian Johnson combination, or a Sirianni new offensive coordinator combination?
If you gave Brian Johnson the freedom that Kellen Moore now has, I'd pick Brian Johnson.
Yeah, Damo.
Brian Johnson is going to be a head coach in this league within 4 years.
I agree.
Who do you think will be a head coach first, Brian Johnson or Kellen Moore?
Probably Kellen Moore.
I'll take any of that action. You want to make a wager? You and I are in, Damo. I'll take any of that action. Kellen Moore gets a head coach job before Brian Johnson. Easy money. I give you 2-1 odds.
Well, I mean, right now, sure. I mean, he's got a better team that he's in charge of, a better offense that he's in charge of, and he's got the freedom to do, to run what he wants to run, to add motion, to add play action, to do all the things that Nick had no use for.
So there's some concern, and I heard it from a couple different people, Damo, that the Eagles, at least early in the process, were leaning more towards Cliff Kingsbury when they were interviewing guys. And the thought process was he can strengthen what Jalen does well. And then for whatever reason, they got to the second interviews. Cliff must have said something they didn't like, and they went in a different direction. And they end up with Kellen Moore. And I think Kellen Moore's, as you mentioned, top 10 using motion. He puts the quarterback under center. The Eagles don't do that unless they're tush pushing. He had Dak Prescott at one point as number one against the blitz. So he's been successful at the things the Eagles weren't successful at. Where are you in the debate of strengthen what he does well versus, he's got to evolve and become better at these other aspects of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been reluctant to bring Kingsbury in here because, I mean, the pieces are here. You know all the pieces work. You still have, even if Jason Kelsey retires, one of the better offensive lines in the league. You don't need to do anything radical like the air raid offense. And plus, from what I understand, I mean, Cliff Kingsbury wanted to bring in an entire new offensive staff, including Jeff Stoutland. Well, anybody that wouldn't want to keep Jeff Stoutland.
And by the way, that's probably why Kingsbury is not the offensive coordinator here, because he wanted too much autonomy, and it probably had to do with Stoutland. I agree with you. Yeah, which is crazy.
That just goes to show how big a dope Cliff Kingsbury is. If you would risk a job because I don't want Jeff Stoutland. Have you been around the National Football League for the last decade, big guy? Good luck in Washington.
Exactly.
And good luck to Brian Johnson working underneath him.
Who do you like? I don't know how much you've looked at draft prospects, but when you talk about Caleb Williams, Drake May, and I'll throw Jaden Daniels because I'm a Jaden Daniels guy. I love Jaden Daniels. Which way you could have any of those prospects to turn into a quarterback, and you're Brian Johnson. Which one do you want?
Yeah, to be honest, John, I really haven't looked at him deep enough to give you an honest opinion on that, or at least a knowledgeable opinion on it.
No, it's understandable.
Yeah,
we're very early in the process.
We got months before we get there. Not that big a deal. All right, since you and I are clad in Andy Reid type wear.
Did you just buy that?
No, I've had this for a long time. I got a bunch of these up in the closet. I just don't wear them all that often, only during the site shorts. So don't wear it in February. I did it for you, Domo.
Yeah, nice day out, though. Good day to break it out. Good day to break it out.
Yeah, no, I'll be changing it after the show is over. Andy Reid is not the favorite. Once again, he was an underdog last year. John Q. Public, a.k.a. the betting odds, spit in his eye, and he spit back and won a Super Bowl. Is he going to do the same again this year as a 2-point underdog to the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah, I think he is. I really like Kansas City in this game. I mean, it's going to be close, but they've got a defense now. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Steve Spagnuolo has a defense that's going to give Brock Purdy some problems on Sunday, and I think Kansas City's going to pull this one out maybe by 3, 4, 5 points.
I'll tell you, in my world, I don't know. Jody's right, obviously, factually. Kansas City's the underdog. I don't know how, because everybody I know is picking Kansas City. But obviously, there's members of the general public going in a different direction. I'm surprised how many people are picking Kansas City. Like, nobody's picking San Francisco. It's pretty amazing to me. That's a good team.
Against Tay-Tay. Like, come on.
Wow, that's true, too. But the conspiracy, the conspiracy theory.
Here are two guys I'll take over Tay-Tay and Mr. Kelsey. Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel. When they play, the 49ers win.
That's true.
And as of now, both are healthy. Maybe not 100%, but 95, no questions, full participant in practice shoot. Deebo can take a shot on the shoulder in the third play of the game, and you're screwed. But then again, Travis Kelce could blow out a knee on the third play of the game. So I don't think he's any that worse off than 95% of the players in the game. Yeah, I'm going against the Chiefs. I'm taking the 49ers. I think that they've got their two key guys on offense to somewhat stifle that Kansas City defense. Because you're right, Domo. People last week I picked them to win outright against the Ravens when the Ravens couldn't lose and they were the best team in football. I said, no, yeah, they can, because people aren't giving Kansas City's defense enough credit. This is a tougher offense. The 49er offense is significantly better than the Raven offense. I thought they'd be able to stop the Raven offense. They did. They contained Lamar Jackson. The 49ers offense just has too many ways to beat you. And I think they'll do that against this Chiefs defense as good as it has been this year. I know everybody in Kansas City entrusts Spags. I'm entrusting the weapons that the 49ers
Spags we trust. Yeah, it's amazing what he's done with that defense. And, I think Eagles fans would like that defense back here, just the way they play versus what we've seen and we'll continue to see. Hopefully ramps it up because he's the guy who runs the scheme. By the way, it's interesting. Big 65. The Cowboys are bringing back Mike Zimmer, who was 67.
Did they just announce that?
No, but I don't think it's official yet. But they're bringing him back. He's going to be the defensive coordinator. Coming back after 2 years out of the game. Early in his tenure in Minnesota,
is that a mistake by the Cowboys, John? Since it's not continuity.
Well, they had to. They had to change.
Quinn left on his own. Yeah, but they're going to turn over that staff. They're going to give Mike Zimmer room to roam and do whatever he wants and fire all the assistant coaches that were so good under Dan Quinn.
Well, first of all, Dan took one of them. Joe Witt is going to be his defensive coordinator, similar to what Jonathan Gannon did with Nick Rallis, and the Eagles lost too. So he's taken one. They blocked Al Harris because Dan Quinn wanted to take him as well. So I think that's an indication they're keeping Al, and they should, because I mean, look at what he's done with their cornerbacks. But yeah, I was a big Zimmer guy early in his tenure in Minnesota as a defensive guy, not as a head coach. He had like 3 top 5 defenses in a row. And then people start to catch up. Now that he's gone and the league has shifted, if he brings back the A-gap stuff, I think the Cowboys are going to be a problem because people don't play it anymore.
That's where we're going to see Micah lining up a lot next year.
Yeah. I think they're going to be a problem. I think it's going to work for the Cowboys. At least short term.
Long live old guys.
Yeah.
No, that's good news in Philadelphia, since you've got a non-spry chicken taking over the defense here in town. If the old guys can still get it done, hopefully that includes the Eagles' new defensive coordinator. All right, Domo, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for dressing up as you always do. We will talk to you again next week. Where are you watching the Super Bowl?
On my couch.
Very nice.
All right.
I'll be
That's
watching
best
it
place
sitting
to
right
be.
Here, looking that way over to the TV while on the air. I'm on the air during the Super Bowl. 3rd year in a row. Yeah, I'll be playing lengthy pre-taped interviews so I can actually watch the game.
We're babysitting my grandson, so I don't know how much of the game I'm going to actually get to see. So.
Okay, good job, Grandpa. All right, pleasure, Damo. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Damo.
Yeah.
Paul Domowitch, 33rd team, and you should be reading him each and every single week during the season with his stat pack as good as it gets on JAKIBSports.com. McBold and McDonald coming back. Hour number 2. We got a good guest joining us as well. Free agent writer. And he is a free agent because he is the kiss of death.
The Grim Reaper.
Grim Reaper of
Mike
football writer's job. Mike Tanya's going to join us coming up in about 10 minutes or so, for 20 minutes or so from now. Hey, Birds fans, here is your chance to save up to 40% on your car insurance right now, and do so from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call managing partner Jim or Fran and tell them you're a friend of JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.